matter how much you love the holidays, I do not think that they're an easy time for anybody. And there's a lot of factors that go into why that is, but I think the number one most important one is how much time you end up spending with family. Now, in the case where COVID has not overtaken the world, which obviously it has today, oftentimes the holidays mean that you end up spending time with family who you don't see. Lots of times there's arguing and yelling and screaming, and as you can imagine, obviously the holidays and spending that much time with family can be a really big trigger for somebody who struggles with things like that. Which is why the first topic that I spoke to my therapist about this week was how Thanksgiving went with my family. And I'm gonna say I am honestly so surprised that I handled myself so well and I had such an awesome time during Thanksgiving. But I do really believe it's because of all the work that we've been doing in therapy and uprooting a lot of these issues. It's just so ironic and so counterintuitive almost and paradoxical, and you really cannot understand this unless you actually do the work yourself. But it seems like the most painful thing to do would be to uproot everything and to bring all of these issues to the surface and to start thinking and wrestling with them. But when you start doing that, when you open yourself to your heart and the things that you've experienced, they just don't hurt you anymore. They don't have as much weight. They don't have as much significance. And so when my family did the normal thing that it does every year around this time, which involves a lot of yelling and screaming, I was more present, but less involved. I was able to be around that noise. I was able to partake in more family activities where in the past, what I would usually do is just be super reclusive and go lock myself in my room or go hide and try to breathe because I felt like I was suffocating. And it's because I have exited the matrix. I'm sort of observing all the things that happen around me, all the movement, all the stress, all the tension, and it's not sublimating anymore. I'm realizing that I don't need to be a victim of that pain. I don't need to hold that pain in my body. I don't need to hold on to that stress and tension. It can happen around me, but I no longer need to take responsibility by internalizing the actions of other people. But despite not needing to, sometimes we choose the pain anyway. Sometimes the dysfunctional, the pain, the tension are attractive to us simply because it's what we know. Even if we know that these things, these people, these experiences aren't good for us, aren't healthy for us, there's always gonna be a pull to the familiar. Above all else, as humans, we accept whatever is most comfortable to us. And most often, what's most comfortable for us is what we know the best, not actually what feels the best or what is the best. I'm changing that conditioning. I've recognized with the help of my therapist that I've got a pull to noisy environments that drown out the noise of my brain and the noise of the trauma and the experiences that I've had in my life already. That's my pull to the familiar, and it doesn't serve me anymore. Honestly, it probably never did. I'm learning now how to go towards what feels the best. When you sever the dysfunctional cord in your life, you finally give the healthy cords a chance to grow. Unlike the brain, our mind is what we make of it. Our thoughts, our conditioning, our perception, it's all a choice. And because it's a choice, we can change it. We can change these things with mindfulness by simply being mindful of our thoughts as we go through our day-to-day life, good or bad, what we're thinking about when we daydream and zone out when we should be paying attention. No judgment, just being curious about how we feel and why that might be. Once we establish that curiosity, once we establish that understanding of our surroundings and how we feel, we can figure out what we want and what we don't want. This is why it's wrong to avoid the discomfort of cracking yourself open. Because when we sit with these painful things, we can understand what has made them painful in the first place. We can learn more about the things that trigger us, and we can learn to either break those trigger patterns down or come up with new, healthier ways of living. You see, the key to living better is simply presence. Presence to your feelings and making sure that your environment is finely tuned to the things that you need inside. So we ended this session by talking about landscapes. She said once it starts to click what's happening, once you start to understand the ways that you've been complicit in creating the conditions that you've claimed not to want, things literally look different. Like visually, the landscape starts to change. And I smiled when she said that. I smiled because earlier that morning, I had spontaneously decided to take a trip through the mountains. I grabbed a cup of coffee from Starbucks. I got in my car, I put on some country music, and I ended up in a parking lot on the side of a mountain overlooking a lake. When I got out of the car, I was overwhelmed by the silence because no one was there. It was the day after Thanksgiving. And I could hear the earth crunching beneath my feet because the dirt was cold. Everything felt different. Everything sounded different. Everything looked different. And I got to a picnic bench and I sat down to meditate. And when those thoughts started to come, when that noise started to come in, it didn't scare me. It didn't intimidate me because for the first time in my life, when those thoughts came on, they didn't suffocate my brain. I was the one in control. I'm in control because I've broken the matrix. I've broken my matrix of pain, of tension, of trauma. I'm out of the loop. I'm understanding. I'm freeing myself. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next week.